Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to From the Expert's Lens. I am Angela Timberlake. I'm your host. I am the Vice President of Elevate Women with JAX USA, division of the Jacksonville Chamber. And I'm very honored to have our special guest with us today, Terry Hoffmann of Hoffman Coaching. She's a professional leadership and executive coach, and so we're thrilled to have her here today. Terry, welcome.
Good morning, Angela. Welcome.
Tell us a little bit about you as we set the stage of why you are the expert. Tell us a little bit about Hoffman Coaching and what your team of coaches are focused on.
Okay, so I'm a coach, so I don't really have the answers, but I have a lot of compelling questions. Hoffman Coaching is in the process of a rebrand. So our big imperative through COVID has been to adapt our coaching to meet our client needs. So we have a cadre of coaches that can go into companies and create coordinated coaching engagements to help executives and their teams thrive and to help companies utilize their coaching services more effectively.
Perfect. So, given the state of where we are today, we talked a lot about, how it's critical to have you here to join this discussion where we really want to help leaders move through the challenging times that we have right now, right? And so how do we do that with the pressures that are being put on us as leaders, right? How do we continue to help move our teams through this with tact, with grace, with the ability to continue to show up and be present as leaders with all the weight, on us. So that's why we're here today. And I'm excited to have you to share your insight, what you're seeing. And one of the things that you've talked about is, you were quoted as saying, I believe this topic is one of the most compelling and potentially impactful for our current era. We have the opportunity now to lead at our leaders, their teams, and our companies through our communities beyond these trying times. As with everything in life, it begins with our own executive mindset. So talk to us a little about that.
Okay, so this is, again, a topic that's super important to all of us and I have a great passion about. So when you think about 2021, we're really in this trifecta of challenge. We've, through 2020, we've sort of done what we needed to do in order to function and tread water, if you will. Now we're looking at, the COVID pandemic with all the loss that's involved in that, with financial outcomes, health outcomes, and an array of challenges for individuals and businesses. Then we've got all of the political upheaval, which has just been, just crazy and challenging and so divisive for our communities. And then the social justice imperatives that are just people are passionate about, people are again divided about. And so how do we as leaders show up in a way that is healing and encouraging our teams to show up in a different way? And my position is that we as leaders are uniquely positioned to connect and lead our families, our businesses, our communities, our country, the world, lead us through this and to the other side. I mean, we have been working on influencing people our entire careers. So if not us, then who? And that's what's really exciting. So I would invite our guests to do a strategic reflection and ask yourself, who do I serve? And who are my stakeholders? And what do these people need from me, from my team? And what are we uniquely prepared to provide for our stakeholders that nobody else can do and cannot be done in tangent and individually. And that is really, from my perspective, that really high value opportunity for us as leaders to come together with our teams, come together with the people that we serve in order to move past this crisis.
Yeah, I mean, it's powerful when you say that, but given how challenging, how emotional, and how stressful this environment can be, how can we do this? How can leaders move through and leverage sort of healthy dialogue? Because it's not about ignoring the dialogue, right? It's not about pushing it away. Now that we've seen the conversations that need to be had, how do we do that? How do we engage those conversations and address conflict to push people back past their fears with integrity and grace? So how can leaders do this?
Yeah. So that's a big question, and it's like going to the gym. If you don't go to the gym and then you go, it hurts and you're sore and you're tired. So it's, setting that expectation that you're going to consistently and persistently build those muscles in yourself and in your team. And it does all start with us. So, what I see when I work with executives is that real power and drive and dedication to get things done, to the point that they may actually suffer themselves. And if you're not falling back on self-care and self-compassion, then it's easy to get overrun, and when you burn yourself out, when you stress yourself out, you can't serve them well. Having these difficult, challenging conversations can be super energy depleting. So I think the first thing is that it starts with us and our self-awareness and our self-care. Then the second thing that's really important is creating psychological safety in your team. And in order to create that psychological safety, it's important to have very clear and explicit rules of engagement. So, what are our corporate values, and how do we demonstrate those? How do we live up to those? And move into these challenging conversations. If you ignore the conversations, you're still creating this subversive stress in the culture. So it's not going to be helpful to avoid them. So how to create, and the other thing is that if you're not talking about things, if there's something going on, which there is everywhere right now, something going on that needs to be addressed that's super important to people, and you're avoiding that conversation, what is the message that you're sending to that person? It's that you don't care. It's that their needs, their values, their passions are not important to you. So it's detrimental for the culture if you don't address it. So clear rules of engagement, providing your team with the tools and resources that are necessary for them to build up those skills and capabilities. The other thing that is super important right now is to be aware of the depth of loneliness and isolation and grief and loss that are in our world, and it's been going on now for a year, so it's getting to be tiresome and old, and it's cumulative. So one thing happens and you're doing fine, and then another thing happens, and it tends to stack up, and then when it happens over a long period of time, you get worn out. And so we're really talking about resiliency again. How do we do, it's like we were a casual runner and then suddenly we have to be in a marathon. So how do we continue to build that resiliency so that we can do this for the long haul? And along those same lines, it's important to not force people to talk. I mean, if you're a leader in an organization, you need to build those skills to be able to talk. But if you are an employee, or you're leading an employee and they don't want to talk, don't force them. You have to be aware of the power differential. So, you know, something might be super comfortable for you to talk about, but not so much for your employee. And they may be thinking, if I don't talk about it, how are they gonna, you know, how are they gonna score me? What am I gonna have to suffer through? So, you know, just be aware of the fact that there is a power differential. And then I think most importantly is, and this, you know, this is why you have to prepare yourself and center yourself, is that when violations of your company norms happen, they must be addressed immediately. If you don't address them, it's as though you're endorsing the bad behavior. So it's critically important for it to be addressed, and then follow up by going back and talking to the person privately to reinforce why that's important and what the alternative is and what the potential outcomes of not correcting that behavior is. And then the other thing, and this is sort of a simple little tool, is that from behavioral health, the granularity of emotions. So how do you feel about this topic? And then what are some other ways, more specific ways to describe how you feel? And the research shows that when you do that exercise with specifics like that, not only do you improve your well-being, but you're improving your emotional intelligence. So it seems like a little simple task, but it has really great neurological and well-being effects. So as leaders, we need to make sure that we are modeling listening, that we are modeling listening for understanding, that we're leading with empathy and curiosity. So trying to understand other people's perspective. One key is tolerance. We have to be able to understand that other people having a different perspective than we do does not necessarily mean the end of the world. It's okay if we don't agree with one another. And what we're talking about here is really another lens that we can look at diversity and inclusion through, right? People have different political perspectives. People have different perspectives on, you know, grief and loss, everything that's out there. We're a beautiful, wonderful, diverse society that has everything to offer, and we should take advantage of that. And the research shows that that helps us in business when we take advantage of that. So I could go on, but I'll pause and see if there's questions.
Yeah, and that is a lot. It's a lot to take in, and I appreciate you sharing all of that with us. So just a reminder to everyone that's watching, feel free to use the chat. Feel free to raise your hand if you do have a question. And while you're thinking about that, I want to talk, the next question I want to ask you, Terry, is how do we do this in a virtual world, right? You know, I know you're here in Jacksonville, and we have a mix. We have a mix of people that are back in the office, but then we still have a mix of companies who are doing hybrid or fully still at home. And so a lot of this is about, you know, how do you continue to have that sort of personal touch with your teams while being virtual? So do you have any things that you can share with us on that? And if you have
I
anything
think
in the audience, please put it in the chat, because I'd love to see what you guys are doing out there as well.
I do think that, you know, mindset fits into this as well, because, you know, I heard a lot in the beginning of, you know, I just can't XYZ because it's virtual, and that self-limiting mindset really We had some amazing experiences with different groups that were actually quite intimate and quite positive, and, you know, sharing the tips and tricks of survival, especially early on. So I think part of it is making sure that you don't just assume that you can't do it, and taking the time to meet regularly, have the structure that people crave so they know what to expect. That helps with stress as well. And give people the platform and the space to be heard. People want to connect, they want to matter, and they want to be listened to. And if you provide that environment for people to open up and share, amazing things happen.
Perfect. Thank you. Now, as we're thinking about this as leaders, there's a lot of talk right now about executive mindset. So, can you share a little bit about, what is your perception of executive mindset, and how do we begin to model that?
Yeah. So that ever elusive kraken of executive mindset. When and this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but when we talk about executive mindset, we're really talking about skills and features that top executives use in order to be successful. One of the big features is the strategic thinking. So top executives are able to think out multiple strategies, typically, 3 or 4 steps further than most of us can think. So that strategic mindset is really important. Of course, business acumen is always a big thing. Do you understand the fundamental principles of business, and can you utilize them, execute them for the capability of your business? One of my really important exercises, which is one of the things we started with, is that whole focus towards purpose. Can you articulate what your purpose is, what your stakeholders need from you, and can you rally your team in order for everybody to be rowing in that same direction? And you got soft skills and follow through, and then a whole bunch of intangible things that all together, the executive presence, where that it factor, where you walk in the room and you command respect by the way that you carry yourself.
Yeah, and are there keys to know when you have it? Like, what are the things that we can to really look for when we have it, or areas that we need to really focus and work on?
So, that's funny that nobody really knows what executive presence is, but people know whether you have it or not. And I think that, that whole nature nurture question of, are you born with it or you develop it? And very few people are actually born with it. Many top executives have worked their entire careers to call that. So, one way to find out if you have it is to get accurate feedback from people that care about you. And, it's not up or down. It may feel that way. It may feel stressful, but more importantly, what are your strengths? What is it that people notice about you that help you be successful, and what are the areas that undermine you? And if you can get trusting relationships with people who can have that really intimate, really direct conversation with you, it's a great opportunity to learn and grow.
Yeah, I agree. I've always said that feedback is a gift, right? And
Yes.
So it's always important to touch in with people and really understand how you're presenting from the outside. And another great way that I know, and I know it's very impactful, is to ask, someone that you see model that behavior, ask them to be a mentor, right? And ask them to help you and be a coach. I'm a firm believer that everyone has a coach. You mentioned that executives work sometimes their entire life to have that executive presence, but they also don't do it alone, right? They tend to have an executive coach, they have a mentor, they have several different people that are helping them form that executive presence.
Yeah. And the thing is, I work with top executives every day, and behind closed doors, we all have our strengths and the areas that we're working on. I have not met one perfect executive yet, but the best ones are the ones that are willing to fearlessly look at where they're at, fearlessly get that feedback, and continuously work on improving it. It can be super, the higher higher you go within an organization, the more isolating it can be. So one of the most important things that I work with executives on is removing that isolation and creating the atmosphere where they can get accurate feedback and people will share with them what's really going on from their perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so as we continue, we don't really see 2021 changing all that much, right? We're all hopeful, but I think we can all prepare that it's going to be, another long, stressful year. So what advice do you have for leaders to help lead their teams when we're out, right? We're in a time right now where everybody's energized. It's the first of the year, but at some point we're going to get burnt out, and it's probably going to happen sooner rather than later, given all the compartmentalized stress that we have. So how do we begin to turn things around?
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to my friends in the healthcare industry because they've been working super hard for a long time and they're tired, but they're still showing up and doing what needs to be done in order to make what needs to happen happen. So, at some point you reach that point of diminishing returns and want to go back to what I was saying earlier, like being a hero, the heroic leader is a thing of the past. It's not going to do anybody any favors if you burn yourself out, make yourself sick, make it so that you can't work. So it's really important for you to take time for yourself and replenish yourself. You'll actually get further faster if you take the time to do that. People don't want to schedule in that downtime, but it's critically important. So the other thing is to make sure that you embed celebrations within your team so that you're aware of what's going on and you're celebrating the small wins and you're paying attention to the small wins, because we, as humans, we are more apt to look at what we haven't gotten done, and that can be exhausting. So especially when you're exhausted, make sure that you're looking at what you are succeeding at and celebrating it and embedding that for your team. And simple things like saying thank you really go a long way. Noticing somebody's inherent strengths when they're even not noticing them about themselves is hugely powerful, hugely empowering and energizing.
Yeah, great advice. I think another thing that a lot of people are starting to do now, and it's starting to get more traction, and it's not a new technique, but it's something to start your day with, is jot down 3 things that you're grateful for or thankful for. And it's puts you in that mindset of looking for the opportunities. The more you do it, you start seeing the things that are positive, right? Because we're wired to see what's wrong. And that's just how we are. And so the more you can do that, and it's just simple things, just have a sticky note or put it in your calendar and say, I was grateful for 1, 2, 3. And it could be just as simple as I'm grateful for Tori who put my schedule together for me today. Just simple
Absolutely.
little things.
And you'll be amazed at when you do that, how that expands. And you'll be like, if you get a gratitude journal and you write in it every night before you go to bed, the next day you'll be like, ooh, this just happened. I'm going to put it in my gratitude journal. And that's how it expands.
Right. Now, before we wrap up, tell us some of the things that you're seeing from your clients, right? So what are the trends in 2021 as you start working with your clients this year? What are you guys focused on?
So, you hit it earlier that there is a sense of optimism. We know that there's a little tiny, tiny, tiny light at the end of the tunnel. So that's good. So companies are focusing on still this trend. There's so many things that were going on pre-COVID that were just accelerated because of COVID. So digitization, that's a huge thing. And over time, everything that can be digitized will be digitized. So what's left is that tacit knowledge, that human knowledge and capability that a machine can't do for us. And that's highly, highly valuable. The other thing, and you can tell maybe that I'm obsessed with team coaching, is that there's a real, as the field of coaching is evolving, this is like the next iteration. So team coaching is where one-on-one coaching was 30 years ago. The space between individuals is fraught with opportunity for development. So if you put one person in a room, they may be highly successful. When you put a group of people in the room, the success diminishes because of disconnect. So coaching to that connection with teams and then teams of teams is a highly impactful, important thing. So we'll be definitely seeing more of that in 2021 and beyond.
Yeah, and are you doing that virtually? Are you doing it sort of hybrid?
We are. I am looking at, I'm not quite old enough for COVID, so I'm looking forward to getting the vaccine so that I can, I do a lot of work in the healthcare industry, so get back in with the healthcare workers. So primarily throughout the year, I've done very little virtually. I did do a residence team building resiliency retreat in a park this year, which I had never done that before.
Nice.
So I think through, as the vaccine gets in more arms, I think we'll see more and more face-to-face.
Great. We'll take a few questions from our audience. So Crystal asked, any thoughts on how to onboard college grads and make them feel part of the team within the virtual environment?
Wow, great question. Hi, Crystal. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us today. Boy, I'll tell you what, I love the millennials, and the millennials are taking over the world. And, like it or don't like it, we're having to adapt to a different sort of way of functioning. And so one of the beautiful things about the millennials and the digital natives is that they love to have that connection. They love to have support and direction. So connecting with them, guiding them, of course, sharing the very important details of how they can succeed. The other thing that we see is sort of reverse mentoring. So helping, more mature employees learn from the newer technology and things that the younger folks can do. That's another thing. But I think it's, for the foreseeable future, it's all about the relationships, hiring the right people and then bringing them in a fashion that can optimize their ability to succeed, and retaining them by making your workplace desirable and enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. And, my experience has always been, they want to contribute in valuable, purposeful ways, right? And so the best way to do that is to find something that's purposeful and assign that to them as a special project, right? It helps them learn the organization, it helps them network.
Angela's audio just took a quick break or something like that. I was curious, actually, Terry, tell us how you got into coaching.
Yes, so by training, I am a Florida By training, I am a Florida licensed mental health counselor, and I've always been fascinated by high performers. So, what are the attributes of high performers that allow them to succeed? So, and also just human nature was always something that fascinated me. So I was trained, I actually did my master's degree here in Jacksonville at the University of North Florida, go UNF. And my professor in my first class, one of the activities that we did was to stand up in the class and tell them what we were going to do with our master's degree. And when it was my turn, I stood up and I said, I like to work with healthy people and help them be more successful. And literally, I'm going to age myself here, but literally the professor scoffed at me and said, that doesn't exist. And so, you know, I spent many years working with the persistently mentally ill, and then working under the umbrella of family therapy, and just worked for a hospital system, had the opportunity to work with executives there and their families. And something about working with super smart, super capable, super driven individuals really felt like the right thing. So I discovered coaching, got trained as a coach back in 2007, and started my company in 2008, and haven't stopped since. And it's an amazing career, amazing lifestyle, and I work with some of the most amazing people in the world.
That's fantastic. I think we have Angela back.
Hey guys, thank you. Sorry about that. I'm glad you were able to continue. Well, you know, we're thrilled to have you here in Jacksonville, Terry. I'm not sure if we mentioned that before. We have so many guests from all over, so you're right here in our backyard, and we're thankful for all the guidance and coaching that you give our leaders here.
Absolutely. And we have coaches across North America, so we do work nationally and globally.
Great. All right. I don't think we have any more questions, so thank you for joining us. If you need Terry's assistance with you, or personally, or with your team, feel free to reach out to her. And until then, keep leading, keep shining bright, and we'll be here with our next guest soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Angela. Thanks, everyone.
All right, bye.